Got dreams of being a professional podcaster, but have no idea what you're doing?
This is impossible.
That's about to change.
A new kind of school.
Welcome to the Pod School Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. This week I'm going to be talking about high-profile guests and whether getting them onto your show is the silver bullet that some people claim it is for growing your audience numbers. There is no doubt that having somebody on your show that a lot of other people like is going to have some benefit for your show, but it is not going to take you from 0 to 700,000 listeners in one episode. It's important to go into all aspects of podcasting with a healthy, realistic expectation, and the same goes for when you've got high-profile guests on. I have seen a few people become very disappointed with the lack of impact that it had on their show. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits of high-profile guests, some of the things not to do, and some of the ways that you can increase your chances of a guest sharing your show and therefore hopefully opening up the floodgates for whoever would like to spill in. Ultimately, how effective this is for you is going to depend on a number of factors, including how engaged the audience of your guest actually is. It is amazing the difference in different people's audiences. Sometimes there are some people who, if that individual tweets that they've gone to have a sandwich somewhere, then all of their fans just want to see them eating a sandwich. Other people have audiences that they could tweet something that is a bit of content that they've done for somebody else, but they might not be the kind of engaged audience that wants to go off their page and look at somebody else's page. You just can't predict what individuals' audiences are going to do, and all of that comes down to the kind of relationship that they've cultivated with the people that follow them, and that is just luck of the draw. Sometimes you'll get people who will tweet out a link to your show, and next thing you know, there is a giant spike in your numbers. Other times you'll get people that'll tweet out to huge numbers and nobody will come and check it out. So it really just depends on the type of relationship that they have with their audience and what kind of people those individuals are. The other thing to think about is, does your show fit in with their brand? If it doesn't, they're probably not going to share your show on their social platforms. Of course, they're not going to do your show if it doesn't fit with them at all, but you might have something that's maybe a little bit more personally driven, talking about their personal story, and maybe their social platforms are geared more towards advice and information. At the end of the day, some people have really carefully curated the content that goes onto their social feed, so they might be mindful of not tweeting it, and that is okay because their Twitter feed is not your Twitter feed. So it's really important to cool your jets and not be a pushy broad or dude. Some of the other things that will impact it is whether they had a good experience on your show. So it is important from the minute that you contact them the very first time to the very last email you ever send that you are delightful to deal with. And you have to treat every single relationship that you have with every guest as a recurring relationship. You know, your relationship with that person doesn't end when they leave your show and they've tweeted it and you've gotten the requisite followers that you wanted to get out of them. You never know when you might want them to come back on your show, and you want to have the kind of relationship with them where they think this is a no-brainer because I had an absolute blast last time. So it's really important to think of things from their perspective, and also to, at the bottom of everything, be so respectful of the fact that they have come, sat with you, done your show, and given you a bucket load of content that you then get to repurpose and ship out. And that, if they do no tweeting at all, should be enough. If they tweet or they share on their Facebook profile, I mean, that is the icing on the content cake. So don't be greedy. That's very important. Now, people do go on a bit about getting high-profile guests on their show as the sort of cure-all for growing an audience. And it is great. There's no doubt about that. And some of the reasons why it's great is that it can introduce you and your podcast to an audience of people that might not have found you otherwise. And not only that, it builds already a small amount of trust in those people because they have that know, like, and trust factor. God, that's a wanky term, but I've just used it and we're living with it. We're we're dealing with it. So they might know, like, and trust that individual. And then by association, the fact that that person that they've probably spent a long time building a relationship thinks that you're a bit of all right and that your show is decent enough to go on, gives them a sense of word of mouth and trust that they go, oh, it's like a friend's recommended me something and I'm going to go and check out that. So there's a bit of reflected glory that you sort of get from those people, and their audience look at you like you're someone worthy of their attention because the person that they are following is interested in you or thinks that your show's good enough to have been a guest on. It will also give you so much shareable content. The chat that you have with them, whether it's for 20 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, will give you little bits of audio that you can keep on repurposing and using. And I always say that is why you should be grateful for that time, and anything else is an additional bonus, because that is huge. As we all know, the thirst for content is unquenchable. And so if they have come and given you a different perspective, a different story, a different kind of side of looking at things, then that can be really, really great and useful for you. So, you need to be mindful of the fact that that is awesome and it could just be enough. But if you are desperate for the retweets, these are some of the things that I would recommend doing if you wanted to ensure that your guests are interested in retweeting you. Make sure, for the love of all things holy, there is something in it for them. When you are starting out, you probably don't have the bargaining chip of you will be exposed to my 300,000 downloads a month audience. You're probably little old you just wanting to build your thing from the ground up, and you haven't got much to offer them in terms of reach. So you need them to feel like this experience is great. For a start, they have to see why you are asking them to go on your show, and that is because the fit of what they do is perfectly aligned to the fit of what you do. If it just looks like you're trying to get them on because they've got a good social profile and it would be really helpful for your show, they will smell it a mile off. So it is very important that you make sure there's something in it for them. And when you are starting out, the best that you can do in that department is just make it a bloody joy of an experience. Be very respectful of their time. Be super prepared when they come in and sit down with you. Be very mindful of the fact that it's entirely their choice if they share your show. Just make it something they do not regret. And more often than not, that little human being sitting across from you will look across at the little engine that is you, just giving it their all, hoping for the best, and think, I want this person to succeed and I'm going to help them do that. So make sure you come at it with good intentions, because they will see what you're after if it is just growing your audience, and they won't be interested in helping somebody that's coming at it from that side of things. If they are going to retweet and they are going to share your stuff on their social platforms, you need to make that process as easy as possible. They need to have all of the information at their disposal. That can be as simple as sending an email. You can also use click to tweet, and I'll leave a link to that on the show notes page at podschoolpodcast.com. Click to tweet is great because it allows you to put in the information and your Twitter handle and a link and whatever else needs to be done, and then send them a link. And if they click on that link, it auto-populates their Twitter message and they can just press publish to send it. Please be mindful of what you put in that tweet. Less is more. Everybody is shipping out their Twitter feed as them. It is their voice and they put the content together. So if you put together 140 characters in your voice as if this is the message that you want them to put out there, they're probably not going to do it because they'd rather just the information. And if they're going to add something to it, then they can do it themselves. This might change if you have got somebody on who would find you preparing a little bit of content helpful. And that is something that it wouldn't be bad asking that individual, because otherwise, if you do send somebody a piece of content already created, like a Facebook post or a tweet, while you think you might be being helpful, it can actually put people off, because if people on the other side of that look at it and go, well, I'm not going to tweet that because that's not in my voice and that's not how I want to do it, it can come across as a bit presumptuous. All you want to do is make it as simple as possible for them to tweet or to share on Facebook. You don't want to go overboard and look like you are trying to tell them how to do their life. So just be mindful of that. Make it easy. Use click to tweet or put the information in an email or whatever it is, but just don't go OTT and say, this is exactly how I would like you to put it onto your Facebook page. So just be mindful of the language there. Some of the big don'ts, please don't expect anything. If they retweet you or they share you on Facebook, that is a blessing. Do not expect that it will happen. Please do not bug them. If they have not retweeted, do not email them saying, why have you not retweeted? The relationship that you will have lost will be so much more valuable than any retweeting that they will have done. The jump in numbers can sometimes be nowhere near as huge as you expect it to be. I've had some of my guests on my podcast, You've Got to Start Somewhere, tweeted out to significantly large audiences. And in the back of my podcast host, it's been tumbleweeds and crickets. I really don't want to burst your bubble on this one, but it's not the guaranteed bump in numbers that some people claim that it is, because it depends on too many variables that are just out of your control. You have to, at the base of everything, understand how precious that content is that they have given you and how much you can do with that. And that should be enough by itself. If you get a few extra retweets or they share on their socials, then that's fantastic. The only way they'll ever do that is if they've had a great time and they want your little show to win because you've been very respectful of them. So I guess at the bottom line of all of this is just don't be a dick. Just back up the truck. Don't be pushy. And be respectful and understand that already, even if you get no social thumbs up, that you've gotten so much from the interview that you've had with someone. As always, I will leave links to everything on the show notes page at podschoolpodcast.com. Thank you so much for downloading this episode. If you are enjoying the tips, I would love it if you'd leave a review in iTunes. That would be magical. It'll just help other people find the show. And of course, if you want to get a bit more in-depth sort of knowledge, you can head to podschool.com.au to find out more about my podcasting course that takes you all the way from coming up with an idea to monetizing your show and all of the creamy, finicky bits in the middle. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next week. And until then, happy podcasting.
That's all for today.